Born Wilkes-Barre, PA, 1940, on July the 26th. A blonde baby girl, the only child of Joseph and Gwen Kopechnik. Do you remember, how could you forget, the car in the water overnight? Old Delmont 88 drove off the Dyke Bridge, a young woman struggling for life, a young woman struggling for life. The rescue squad diver, John in Fair, he could save her if he was called, he was sure. He found her hands clenched to the luxurious leather, her face in an air pocket in the floor, her face in an air pocket in the floor. It was an innocent party, they say, 6 women, 6 husbands, not theirs. Steaks and drinkings and swims at the beach. They crossed the Dyke Bridge to get there. Twice they crossed the Dyke Bridge to get there. Late at night, as one version goes, he planned to take the young lady home. But the Dyke Bridge was in the opposite direction. Instead, he made a wrong turn to catch the ferry to Egerton. Do you remember, how could you forget, the car upside down all night, in an air pocket in the floor, in the Poncha Pond, a young woman struggling for life, a young woman struggling for life. The man swam from the car and he said he tried to save her, but he walked back to the party instead. 1 3/4 miles from Poncha Pond, did he know if the woman was dead? Did he know if the woman was dead? He walked past 4 cottages and a firehouse with a phone and an alarm. Did he call for help to save her life? No, he left the island and went home. He left the island and went home. Next morning he called the ferry back to the island, to the sheriff with the story he didn't go. But 2 fishermen found the overturned car. Now a new story had to unfold. Now a different story had to be told. Do you remember, how could you forget, with a party going on that night, in the cold dark waters beneath the Dyke Bridge, a young woman struggling for life, a young woman struggling for life. He called his lawyers, he called his aides, he called to ask what to do. He called her parents to tell of her death, but they learned he was driving from the news. They learned who was driving from the news. Mary Ellen, Esther, Rosemary, Sue and Ann, Joe, Raymond, John, Charles and Paul. Most managed to leave and avoid the police, and most were never questioned at all. None have ever talked. No, none have ever talked. Don't they remember, how could they forget, fighting for air in a car swept by the tide, upside down in the water beneath the Dyke Bridge, a woman struggling for her life, a woman struggling for life. The cottage stay cleansed of all the beer bottles, no sign of a party at all. Just Coke bottles washed just like the witnesses, a deputy and friends on a yacht. No credit for what they saw. Many a version, but the truth's never been told. Was she asleep in the back seat? Were they alone? Was he with another woman, cheating on his wife? Will the truth ever be told? Will the truth ever be told? Dr. Mills, the coroner, said death by drowning, but other experts said not so. They've seen a lot of drowning on the island, so they know suffocated body flows. They know suffocated body flows. Do you remember, how could you forget? How long did she live that night? In dark waters, upside down in a car, a woman struggling for life. A woman struggling for life. For some reason the family said no autopsy, so the truth was laid in the ground. News of the moonwalk took the front page, and the senator was held to no count. The senator was held to no count. Judge Bull said he doubted the story, but power and money and might won. 2 months suspended sentence for the death of a woman so young. For the death of a woman so young. Do you remember, how could you forget the fear she felt that night? An old Stelmont 88 drove off the Dyke Bridge, a young woman struggling for life. A young woman struggling for life. The young lady dead in the bloom of her life, not a mother, never a wife. This man held as a prince before the world, instead of a liar and a murderer that night. Now before God he stands instead of the Senate. There'll be no filibuster nor a veto. He'll give an account for his ungodly laws, for the death of Mary Jo, and for the death of Mary Jo. Do you remember, how could you forget the lies of July 69? The senator's Oldsmobile drove off the Dyke Bridge, a young woman struggling for life. A young woman struggling for life. In the waters, in the dark of the night, he left a young woman struggling for life. He left a young woman to die.